Good morning. And thanks, Derek, for pointing out that I'm on the wider leadership team when my title is How to Lead. We're losing the young people by the looks of things. Aren't they great? So Steve started a series last week on the minor prophets. And we're looking at Micah for a few weeks. And it's one of those things, we rarely read a massive amount of the minor prophets. So we are actually going to read all 3 chapters this morning, little bit by little bit, not all at one go. You'll be probably quite pleased to hear. And I think there's some things that we need to be aware of as we look at the minor prophets. We're looking at the 8th century BCE. It's a long time ago. And Israel and Judah were a split nation, ruled by 2 different kings. They were supposed to be a theocracy, which means that basically God was supposed to be their king. That was how it was supposed to work. The religious leaders played a very big part in the leadership of the nation and of each individual area. And that's very different from how our leadership works today. And we need to be really careful not to just kind of map what it says here straight to our leadership today, because it's not the same structure. But the thing is, that doesn't mean to say that we can't learn huge lessons from these books. Okay? So we're going to look briefly at the structures of chapters 3 to 5, because I've got 3 chapters there. So we have basically God's complaints. Disaster is coming, God's promise for the future, the consequences of not following God, i.e. disaster is coming, God's promises for the future, and then the Messiah, the fulfillment and leadership of that Messiah. And actually, as we look through Micah, that kind of basic pattern, God's complaints or saying what you're doing wrong, and disaster is coming, and God's promises for the future, that is the book of Micah in a nutshell. Okay, so we're going to look at some of this. The prophecies we see scattered in through this are a partial fulfillment at the return from exile. So the people of Israel and Judah went off into exile at different times. So when they came back, the southern kingdom came back, some of these prophecies were partly fulfilled then. But equally, some of them have not yet been fulfilled. And we're waiting still for that full fulfillment at the end of the time with the Messiah as their leader. Now, the word Messiah is one that we use in a sort of slightly weird way these days. So ignore that. Ignore how we normally use it. Messiah literally means the anointed one. In the New Testament, in the Greek, it is always put in as Christ, means anointed one. We call Jesus Christ for a reason. Jesus is that Messiah. So when we're looking at the word Messiah, that is who we're talking about. That is the fulfillment that they didn't know at the time. Okay? We are living in the ends of the ages when we're still looking forward to the complete fulfillment of these prophecies. But we are still living with Jesus. If we are surrendered to Jesus, we are living with him as our king. And so he, therefore, is our leader. He is my leader. Okay, so as I go through this talk, I'm going to read the passage with comments in between. And we're going to look at the end at how that impacts us today. And some of us may be standing here going, well, I'm not a leader, so it's not my problem. Okay, but actually, we need to think about, actually, we often are leaders in other spheres of life. When I'm at work, in the room that I work in, I am the leader in that room. How I treat people in that room is directly related to how I choose to lead. Okay? Others in your spheres of work, in your sphere of influence, you are also leading. Parents, you are leading your families. All of those things. Even if you turn around and say, okay, I'm completely off the hook, I'm not a leader in any sphere, who do you follow? Are you choosing to follow people who have characteristics of godly leaders, both in work in secular setting, in a church setting. Choose who you follow and choose how you lead. Okay? So Micah 3. And I've put it in 2 columns so that as I get to the comments at the bottom, we've got the whole passage that I've just said on the screen at a time. Then I said, this is Micah, "Listen, you leaders of Jacob, you rulers of Israel. Should you not embrace justice? You who hate good and love evil, who tear the skin from my people and the flesh from their bones, who eat my people's flesh, strip off their skin and break up their bones in pieces, who chop them up and like meat for the pan and flesh for the pot. Then they will cry out to the Lord, but he will not answer them. At that time he will hide his face from them because of the evil they have done." So Micah's saying we've got injustice here. In verse 1, the leaders should be embracing justice. It's kind of a baseline, really, in many ways for leaders anywhere. We should be embracing justice. He's talking about inequality in verse 2. He's talking about taking advantage of people in verse 3. And literally, he likens it to cannibalism. It's a really horrible picture. But actually, he's saying that they're treating people like nothing, or like animals, as something to be consumed, as something to be used up. That's how they're treating people. And therefore, God doesn't speak or isn't heard. And we see this today too. So verse 5. "This is what the Lord says. As for the prophets who lead my people astray, they proclaim peace if they have something to eat, but prepare to wage war against anyone who refuses to feed them. Therefore, night will come over you without visions, and darkness without divination. The sun will set for the prophets, and the day will go dark for them. The seers will be ashamed, and the diviners disgraced. They will all cover their faces, because there is no answer from God. But as for me, I am filled with power, with the Spirit of the Lord, and with justice and might, to declare to Jacob his transgression, to Israel his sin." So we're seeing, particularly in verse 5, selfishness, a real sense of inconsistency. They're saying one thing when it's convenient, but when it's not convenient, or when it goes against their benefit, then they'll go back on it. I'm going to be peaceful, but it's not convenient for me, so I'm not going to be anymore. And therefore, God isn't heard by the prophets. But what we do see is that Micah is still hearing from God. He's prepared to look at this. Verse 9. "Hear this, you leaders of Jacob, you rulers of Israel, who despise justice and distort all that is right, who build Zion with bloodshed and Jerusalem with wickedness. Her leaders teach for a price, and prophets tell fortunes for money. Yet they look for the Lord's support and say, 'Is not the Lord among us? No disaster will come upon us.' Therefore, because of you, Zion will be ploughed like a field. Jerusalem will become a heap of rubble. The Temple Hill a mound overgrown with thickets." So again, the leaders are despising justice. They're distorting what's right. There's violence there. They're money orientated. They're taking bribes. They're doing things for money. And therefore, God doesn't protect them. These things are all the reasons that God is not protecting. And destruction happens. So overall in chapter 3, we see that the leaders are running the land through bribery. They bend justice to favour the wealthy. The poor are deprived of land, security and hope. And as a consequence of these things, God doesn't speak to the prophets, apart from Micah. God doesn't protect them, and they suffer. And the Bible tells us that the northern kingdom, Israel, went into exile. Judah was attacked by the same people, by Assyria, but was not destroyed. And that's possibly, and it's generally thought, because Hezekiah listened to Micah and Isaiah, who were both contemporaries. And that delayed the judgment on Judah, because the leader turned around. Later on, we still see, though, that Judah, the southern kingdom, went into exile in Babylon. Micah 4. In the last days, the mountain of the Lord's temple will be established as the highest of the mountains. It will be exalted above the hills, and peoples will stream to it. Many nations will come and say, "Let us go to the mountain of the Lord, to the temple of God of Jacob. He will teach us his ways, so that we may walk in his paths." The law will go out from Zion, the word of the Lord from Jerusalem. He will judge between many peoples and will settle disputes for strong nations far and wide. They will beat their swords into plowshares and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation will not take up sword against nation, nor will they train for war anymore. Everyone will sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, and no one will make them afraid, for the Lord Almighty has spoken. All the nations may walk in the name of their gods, but we will walk in the name of the Lord, our God, forever and ever. In that day, declares the Lord, I will gather the lame, I will assemble the exiles, and those I have brought to grief. I will make the lame my remnant, those driven away a strong nation. The Lord will rule over them in Mount Zion from that day and forever. As for you, watchtower of the flock, stronghold of daughter of Zion, the former dominion will be restored to you. Kingship will come to daughter Jerusalem. This is a chapter of hope. God is saying in the last days when God's kingdom comes, this is hope. People from everywhere will come to Yahweh. Justice will come. Bring peace. We see that weapons will be turned to growing food implements. It will bring prosperity. It harks back to a promise previously of peaceable living, about sitting under your own vine, under your own fig tree. I tried to think this week of examples of how we would use that kind of phrase. Couldn't come up with one, but I was with a friend out paddleboarding, and she said, "This is it, isn't it?" It's actually doing those things that make us feel safe and secure enough to do something that's maybe a bit frivolous, something that's just relaxing. But it's speaking mainly of food security, of not living in fear. We then see that the weak will become a strong nation led by God. It talks about the lame, the exiles, those that have had grief. That's going to become a strong nation led by God. That's the kind of leader who works with people like that, works with people like us. So verse 9, why do you now cry aloud? Have you no king? Has your ruler perished, that pain seizes you like that of a woman in labour? Writhe in agony, daughter Zion, like a woman in labour. For now you must leave the city to camp in the open field. You will go to Babylon. There you'll be rescued. There the Lord will redeem you out of the hand of your enemies. But now many nations are gathered against you. They say, let her be defiled, let our eyes gloat over Zion. But they do not know the thoughts of the Lord. They do not understand his plan, that he's gathered them like sheaves to the threshing floor. Rise and thresh, daughter Zion, for I will give you horns of iron, I will give you hooves of bronze, and you'll break to pieces many nations. You will devote their ill-gotten gains to the Lord, their wealth to the Lord of the earth. We see that the leaders aren't leading, just not doing it. They're not leading. And as a result of that, we see pain, abandonment, exile, and we see rescue. In chapter 5, marshal your troops now, city of troops, for a siege is laid against us. They will strike Israel's ruler on the cheek with a rod. But you, Bethlehem Ephrathah, though you are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come for me one who will be ruler over Israel, whose origins are from old, from ancient times. Therefore Israel will be abandoned until the time when she who's in labour bears a son, and the rest of his brothers return to join the Israelites. So just these 3 verses, we have siege, we have hope, and we have abandonment. And I thought, actually, we need to hold on to hope in the midst of all of this. In the midst of those siege times, in the midst of those times of feeling abandoned by people and by God, hold on to that hope. We read verse 2 regularly in December. as we're looking forward to Jesus' birth, to celebrating Jesus' birth. And yet we forget that actually this was a promise that was given in the midst of horrific times, in that prediction of horrific times. And then Micah goes on to talk of that one, that hope, the one that's going to be born in Bethlehem. He will stand and shepherd his flock in the strength of the Lord, in the majesty of the name of the Lord his God, and they will live securely, for then his greatness will reach to the ends of the earth. And he will be our peace when the Assyrians invade our land and march through our fortresses. We will raise against them 7 shepherds, even 8 commanders, who will rule the land of Assyria with the sword, the land of Nimrod with a drawn sword. He will deliver us from the Assyrians when they invade our land and march across our borders. So that one born in Bethlehem is going to be a shepherd type of leader. Bit different from what you expect when you've got an army raged against you. He will lead in God's strength. He will be their peace. He will stand like a shepherd to protect them. He will deliver them. Jesus hasn't changed. Promises are still true for us. And then it talks about what it is like to live under this leadership of this type of leader. Verse 7. The remnant of Jacob will be in the midst of many peoples, like dew from the Lord, like showers on the grass, which do not wait for anyone or depend on man. The remnant of Jacob will be among the nations, in the midst of many peoples, like a lion among the beasts of the forest, like a young lion among the flocks of sheep, which mauls and mangles as it goes, and no one can rescue. Your hand will be lifted up in triumph over your enemies, and all your foes will be destroyed. It's refreshing living under Jesus' rule, under the Messiah's rule. It's triumphant. It's different. In verse 10, in that day, declares the Lord, I will destroy your horses from among you and demolish your chariots. I will destroy the cities of your land and tear down all your strongholds. I will destroy your witchcraft, and you will no longer cast spells. I will destroy your idols and your sacred stones from among you. You will no longer bow down to the work of your hands. I will uproot from among you your Asherah poles when I demolish your cities. I will take vengeance in anger and wrath on the nations that have not obeyed me. God is going to get rid of the tools of war. Chariots and horses, they were tools of war. They were the tanks and the aircraft of their day. He will get rid of their defences because they won't be needed. He will get rid of other gods and the worship of other gods, and God will be with them. So that's a whistle-stop tour through 3 chapters of the book of Micah. Okay? And what can we learn from that for today? Because that's kind of the point. You don't need me reading out bits. You can go and do that yourselves. But I think actually all these chapters, they talk of injustice, inequality, taking advantage of people, selfishness, lack of principles, violence, money orientation, many other things. All of these things were the things that God was angry with. And he punished them. But how many of those do we see today? Injustice, inequality, taking advantage of people, selfishness, lack of principles, violence, money orientation. How many of those do we see today? How many of those do we see in our leaders? How many of those do we see in ourselves? Do we treat people as resources to be used up, to be expended? How many people work in a company where they have a human resource department? It's a normal term. And what it brings is that attitude that people are resources to be used. People are not resources to be used. People are not expendable. No matter where they were born, no matter what their background is, no matter what they've done, people are not expendable. Are we people who are good with ecology and justice when it suits us? But when that actually costs us something, we're not prepared to actually stick to those principles. It comes with a cost. Looking after the environment, looking after people, it comes at a cost. And sometimes that's financial, sometimes it's time, sometimes it's other things. Are we people who are prepared to say, actually, no, this is the principle that I'm going to stand on? Do we even ask these questions? Do we stand behind leaders who do these things? Do we even look at what our leaders do and then say? And sometimes we overlook these injustices because something else is going on and, well, that bit's okay. Which are the principles that we need to make our decisions on? And I'm trying to be really careful not to give examples because I do not want to be party political. I do not want to point out at other people because there are good and bad things on all parts of the political spectrum. But we need to make our decisions on how we do things, who we stand behind as leaders in a church setting, in a work setting, in a country setting. Who are we supporting? Are we looking at these things, or are we just not even thinking about them? Because God cares about these things. God speaks into these things today, and God wants us to notice. It's why I read so much of it. I've not just picked out odd verses that people can then say, oh, it's 3 or 4 verses out of these chapters. This is what these chapters are saying. So when we look at what type of leader is the Messiah, he's a shepherd type of leader. He leads in God's strength. He's peaceful. A shepherd to protect them, to deliver them. Brings prosperity to all, not just some. It's not a case of some will have their own vine to sit under and some will have their own fig tree to sit under. Everybody will. And actually, it's not really prosperity if it's at someone else's expense. Are we prepared to be this type of leader? A Christ-like leader? You know, if we are saying we are followers of Jesus, if we are his disciples, his apprentices, that is so that we become more like him. If this is the principles of his type of leadership, then this should be the principles of our types of leadership too. In work, in church, in our communities. Will we be these kind of people? Will we stand behind these kinds of leaders? Will we encourage them? Because this is costly leadership. This is really difficult to stand up there and say, this is what I'm going to stand on. And I know it's costly, but I'm still going to stand on it. And I know it's unpopular, but I'm still going to stand on it. Because this is a godly way of leading. We need to stand behind our leaders when they do these things, when they are these shepherd leaders, when they are seeking justice and peace and equity. We need to stand behind them, supporting them, encouraging them, having their back. And God wanted the people to follow the leaders in justice and equality, in bringing peace and providing a place that everybody could sit under their own vine and under their own fig tree, where they could have peace, food security, equity, safety, not where some had it in abundance and others didn't have it, where everybody has value and is treated as someone who has value, full human value. These prophecies haven't been fulfilled yet, not in their fullness, but we can move towards this ethic now with God's help. We can make that stand and say, this is how I choose to live. This is the people I choose to stand behind. So, yeah, nice light and fluffy message, but, what one thing can we do to live this life? If we try and do 50 things, by lunchtime we will have stopped everything. One thing. And don't feel guilty about the other bits and pieces that you can't do at the same time. What are the one thing that we can do to bring God's kingdom here, now, for those that are around us? What's that one thing that we can do to be the types of leaders who are following God's lead? What is the one thing that we can be to be the type of followers who follow the Good Shepherd? Not the wolves who are strong and powerful, but who don't bring justice, equity, peace, value to people. So I'm going to make a suggestion that you make a note on your notebook, on your phone, take a photo of the screen to think about later. The PowerPoint will be on the website later. And tell someone, because it's nice and easy to say, oh yes, that's what I'm going to do in your own head. It's sometimes quite hard to actually then remember that by lunchtime. And yeah, tell someone who you know might keep you accountable, which is always a bit more scary, isn't it? So, yeah, this morning, I know that I want to be that Jesus kind of leader when I'm at work, when I'm in my community, when I'm studying, when I'm doing stuff for Ebby as part of the support leadership team. I want to be that leader. I need to work out what's for me, the thing that I need to do to move me more in that direction. And each of you need the same.